Hey guys, checking in. Gap mining, finding the space where innovation grows. Picture yourself touring an immaculate biotech facility. Foam benches, humming centrifuges, monitors vibrating with omics data. Everything screams future. Then you notice a lone clipboard. The lab tech manually transcribing sample IDs because the barcode scanner keeps timing out. That moment of friction feels trivial, until you realize it repeats thousands of times a day across the industry. One sticky note of inefficiency scales into continental drift of lost time, inflated costs, and preventable errors. Welcome to gap mining, the disciplined hunt for microscopic pains that metastasize and zoom out. Let's quantify it. A nurse spends 90 seconds retyping vitals because the EHR's autofill ignores accents and patient names. 90 seconds seems inconsequential until you multiply by every vital taken at every shift change in every hospital worldwide. Suddenly, you're staring at millions of nursing hours, vaporized annually, equivalent to entire graduating classes of clinicians diverted from care to keystrokes. Small frictions behave like compound interest in reverse and quietly erode value while no one is watching. History rewards the people who notice first. In the early 2000s, hospitals still faxed medication orders, forcing pharmacists to squint at smudged toner. A handful of software engineers asked, why not route prescriptions digitally? The question birthed e-prescribing modules, shaved hours of discharge times, and ignited a multi-billion-dollar EHR integration wave. The fortune wasn't in flashy new drugs. It was in removing the micro delay between physician intent and pharmacy fulfillment. Consider digital pathology. For decades, pathologists diagnosed cancer by peering through glass slides, meticulous, artisanal, unscalable. The gap was only a 5-micron thick slice of tissue stuck under a cover slip. Yet, whole slide imaging turned that sliver into pixels, unlocking AI classifiers that now have diagnostic turnaround and spawn IPO level startups. Single analog bottleneck digitized, generated an entirely new computational discipline, and spun off billion-dollar exits. If you consumer wearables, their rise to minuscule annoyances. Early heart rate straps demanded alcohol wipes and chest compression. Great for cyclists, terrible for couch dwellers. One engineer asked why the sensors couldn't live on the wrist, tolerating noisy data but filtering it algorithmically. Apple Watch, Garmin, and a global remote cardiac monitoring market followed. The foundational insight wasn't to invent a new sensor, it was to subtract the 15-second chest strap hassle that blocked mass adoption. So how do you mine these gaps? First, adopt operational microbiology. Observe workflows under a microscope until you see the cellular structures of delay, copy-paste rituals, swivel chair integrations, anything that forces a human to translate between systems. Second, calculate the friction multiplier. Ask how often the irritation occurs, how many actors touch it, and what error cascade it sees. Third, dream in negative space. Imagine the workflow with the friction surgically removed, what value floods in. That delta defines your opportunity. Now a challenge. Select a process in your lab, clinic, or startup that feels annoyingly minor. Maybe labeling cryovials, maybe e-consent forms that time out mid-signature. Trace its life cycle across a year, across a region, across a global supply chain. Quantify the leak, then prototype the plug. Remember, venture scale value often hides not in moonshot novelty, but in the dust motes of operational neglects. Gap mining isn't glamorous, it's janitorial innovation. But as G.K. Chesterton quipped, the world will never starve for a want of wonders, but only for want of wonder. Cultivate that wonder for the seemingly insignificant. You will find the spaces where tomorrow's billion-dollar solutions germinate. So, sharpen your perception, deploy your data, and mine the gaps. Because in biotech, greatness is usually buried under someone else's busywork. Signing out.